Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the natural homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Ian Mann, and I'm joined on the panel today with Michelle Duncan and Lynn Nesbitt, both via Zoom. The Assessment Department personnel also appearing via Zoom is Mr. Justin Mikulik, and the administrative personnel today is Francisco Picoto. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed following swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The session will close after the application has been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decision. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing only item 1 on the docket today. Ms. Picoto, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Justin Mikulik.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Arnold Moss.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Before we begin with the hearing of the evidence, I note that there is one preliminary matter, and that is the receipt of late evidence from the assessor, Mr. Mikulik. I believe the evidence brief was submitted 1 day late. Is that correct, Ms. Picoto?
I believe so.
Okay, so it appears that it came in on the 29th with the evidence date being the 28th. Before we adjourn to or recess to discuss what we should be doing with this matter, Mr. Mikulik, I'm going to ask you if you can provide us a reason for the late filing.
Administrative clerical error on my part. I had the days mixed up. I went to go send it in on Thursday morning, the 29th, and looked at the sheet and it said the 28th. So that's really what happened. And yeah, I don't know. There's nothing really else to add other than that.
Mr. Moss, you've had an opportunity to review the evidence as presented, or the brief at least filed by Mr. Mikulik?
I have.
Okay, so the waiting the extra day or getting it a day late hasn't caused you any difficulty or prejudice?
I would say no.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll take a quick recess, or we'll take a recess as long as necessary to discuss what best to do with the evidence, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, Mr. Mikulik, Mr. Moss will be putting you in the waiting room.
Thanks.
We'll call this meeting back to order. We will be accepting the explanation, and the evidence will be allowed in. Mr. Mikulik, I see there is also, I'm going to ask you to introduce the property and begin the evidence from your brief. However, I notice as well that there is a burden of proof issue here with respect to the non-cooperation allegation under section 53 of the Municipal Assessment Act. So if you can introduce the property, please, and then we'll move down to the application pursuant to the Municipal Assessment Act. Okay.
So we do have file number 24-1230, roll number 02050460000. For today's instance, I am with the circumstances involved with just the applicant accepting my evidence and me being late, I'd waive the non-cooperation for this hearing.
So you're withdrawing the application for a non-cooperation pursuant to the Municipal Assessment Act?
Yes.
Okay. I'm assuming that's okay with you, Mr. Moss?
You,
Okay, then if you can please proceed to present your brief, lead us through your evidence, please.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is 2025 assessment. The assessed value is 1.431 million. Classifications 20, liability is T taxable. We have a 2-story apartment built in 1962 with 11 suites. If you scroll to page 2, you could see there was a sale July 17, 2020 for 1.3 million. We did send a request for information on the sale October 23rd, 2020. We didn't receive that back. You could see the history of the mailers that it hasn't been returned since the sale. They did return one, I guess, for the 2020 information year, which I have included. That is at the end of the brief. If you look at page 2, you could see where it's located in the Monroe East neighborhood. So it's just south of, looks like Concordia Avenue, north of Talbot, in that pocket, Talbot Gray, Monroe East. If we go down here, page 3, we do have our income value summary. So we have an average monthly rent per unit on this at $961.54. And you could see the gross potential rent where it comes in at $138,462 less the vacancy, effective gross income $134,862. Expense ratio of 48.01%, which would give us a net operating income of $70,115. Model driven cap rate of 4.9% to come up with the market value of 1.431 million. Page 4, I've included some rent comparables just to show you where the property's rents fit in on from an income perspective with other similar ones in the neighborhood. So you could see these are all smaller apartment buildings, and you could see just the way the unit mixes lie, where this one falls in at $961.54 per unit, and then you just have that range going up to $1,045 per unit. So we would think from an income perspective too, relative to other reported properties, that this one would be acceptable. Capitalization rates. So on page 5, the city Winnipeg, we provide just our breakdown of capitalization rates. So you could see in the multifamily box there where our capitalization rates lie relative to, say, other real estate brokers, reporting agencies. So the city of Winnipeg lies between the 20th and 80th percentiles, where we'll see the bulk of the cap rate. So that's between 4.75 and 5.45%. And then obviously on the outside, there are going to be some outliers. So you would think of that like a bell curve, where the meat of the cap rates would fall between that range. Capitalization rate evidence on page 6. So this is just what we supply here to show stabilized cap rate sales of property that have sold through land titles, and we've stabilized those cap rates based on 3-year history of reported income to us. Now you could see that we give about 5 years here of sales of cap rates. Now these cap rates are designed to just support where our model cap rate comes in. So in this case, we're at 4.9%, and these sales would show that 4.9% would be an acceptable cap rate application given the range that these sales were stabilized at. Now I will just say we found out after I've submitted this evidence, that 203 Woodlawn, you can exclude that from the cap rate evidence, just in the event that we found out it was an associated sale between family members, so you could cross that one off. And scrolling to page 8, so just this is providing the income and expense request for 2022 year that the owner had received it but didn't return it to us. But you know what, because we're not seeking non-compliance, we can kind of bypass that. Page 9, I've included what they submitted for the 2020 reporting year. So they did report, I guess, a gross income you could see of 144,000. They didn't really fill out the expenses. I would imagine these expenses wouldn't be indicative truly of how the property's been handled. But we do have a gross income here. Even on page 10, they did fill out the rents. So they are coming in at 144,000 gross rents, and we're coming in at 138,462. So I mean, I feel we're pretty close on income. And then as far as the expenses, there's been no change there because they haven't submitted any expenses to us. So from our end, the 1.431 million would be appropriate, and that would be all for my presentation today.
Thank you, Mr. McGlick. Mr. Moss, have you any questions of the assessor?
No, I'm fine with what he said. I'll in my presentation, I'll tell you some of the things that I believe and that might contradict some of the things that Justin has brought forward. But he's got his information, and I'm going to stand by what he has to say.
Okay, Ms. Nesbitt, questions?
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Mikulik, you reported a July 2020 sale. Have you had the chance to look into that? Is that a valid sale? Is it arm's length?
As far as we know, it's arm's length. It registered through land titles. The consideration and sworn value are the same. The owner's names, I mean, it doesn't look like there's any relation there, but we did send out a mailer that didn't get returned. So, I mean, as far as I know, it's arm's length. But
Okay, so it's the mailer that wasn't returned that provides the information that validates whether or not this is an arm's length sale?
well, we do send out a mailer asking the new owner to fill out all the information regarding the property and how they came up with the value and if it is arm's length and
Okay.
type of things. So
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at your comps on page 4 of your brief. I note that they're all relatively the same age. Which comp do you feel is closest to the subject property?
probably the 595 Fleming, just being that it's a 12-unit complex. It does have 6 1-bedrooms and 6 2-bedrooms. It's just 510 Gray. The subject does have 1 bachelor, so that would be really the only difference, but they almost look like identical properties. So I would say that one would be the closest.
Okay.
Comp 3.
Comp 3, yes. You did not include a map, so we can't see how close they are. Can you
They're
just,
all like right in the same neighborhood, like within minutes of each other.
and where is the one on Watt Street?
646 Watt. I guess that would be, I don't know exactly what streets it would be between, but it's in the same neighborhood, market region, same neighborhood as this subject. So you wouldn't really get a lot of variation in terms of like the rents demand.
Okay.
Like
think
it's all in the same CMHC neighborhood.
Okay,
Looking at like market rents.
okay. Let's see, I just had one more question about cap rate. Your 4.9 cap is on the low end. The city's in that 20 percentile is 4.75, you're up 4.9. And I looked at the brokers also, and they're And they're also, their lowest is around that 4.75. Can you explain to me why the model would assign a 4.9 cap to a property that's 50,
Well, there's a number of
60 years old?
factors. Yeah, there's a number of factors that the model takes into account that I really don't know all of them. But this is why we provide on page 6 the capitalization rate evidence. So when we actually take sales that did occur and stabilize their 3-year reporting to us, these are the cap rates that we end up getting. So you could see where they range from. Now, this is done to show that when the model does produce a cap rate, that it's not outside the realm of possibility, that it could be, like, it wouldn't be that based on what we've provided on page 6 for evidence. So these are stabilized sales that would support a model application of 4.9%. As far as when you speak to other agencies on cap rates that they produce, I would say that the city of Winnipeg gets all the information from almost all owners of what they report to us. So when we're inputting all that income and expense information, we will tend to get, I would say, a more data-driven cap rate because we've just gotten more data. So it's a little bit more refined than what these agencies would receive. So
Thank you, Mr. McCulloch. I have no additional questions.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
I think just you use the income approach. Do you ever use the sales comparison approach?
we would not, because we have enough evidence here to support using income that I think that it gives a proper valuation of what type of property and how it's run.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
My question, I don't think you dealt with it in the introduction of the property, Mr. McCulloch,
Okay.
but the reference date you are dealing with here is April 1st, 2023.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I have. Mr. Moss, would you please provide your evidence?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Arnie Moss. I've been a realtor for 41 years in the city of Winnipeg. I am saddened sort of by my client not providing the income statement. And I'd like to go back, if you'll notice, no, I don't have this, you'll have this 510 gray, and I'm going to go back to 2018, was on the market for 1.379, then dropped to 1.3 on the market for 53 days, and it did not sell. And at that point, the cap rate was 3% on that property. Sadly, the buyer, the owner of the property, is an unsophisticated buyer, and ended up buying the property directly from the owner himself. He had no representation at that time. And when I spoke to him about it, I said, why would you do this? And he was sort of in a jackpot, and felt that he needed this property for the operation of his business, and he just had to buy it. And I don't think he was buying it by buying it without representation. I felt he overpaid, especially with sitting at 1.3 and getting a 3% cap rate. Now, that was in 2018. He bought it in 2020. I asked him to provide the income statements and the nature of his business. He unfortunately is not in the country right now, so I'm sort of saddened by him not providing that, and he was asked for it. So that's my apology. But I do look at that previous cap rate when he bought it, and was considerably lower than what the average is coming out at. His operation is not a typical rental of people that looking to rent. He has a First Nation business, and that type of business doesn't generate the type of rent that would normally be seen in the open market. I go back to last year, a comparable sale that I provided at 450 Talbot, which is one I personally sold, which is in the subject area.
Hey, Mr. Moss, I'm going to just advise you that that is a post-reference sale. Both of the other sales, 450 Talbot and 330 Poplar, are both post-reference sales. As such, and the board will not be considering post-reference evidence. The reference date being, of course, April 1st, 2023.
Well, if you, why do you say that's post-reference?
Because the sale date, Mr. Moss, is noted at 10/9/23. Whether
I know,
that's
but you know what? Can I explain one thing to you about that in regards to that? Just because that is the possession date, that does not mean when the sale actually occurred. You know, so a lot of times when you write an offer, possession can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months for financing to occur. So when the actual offer was written, I think was in that subject date. So you know, just because possession date occurred there doesn't mean that that's exactly the same date as you know, they're two different things. So I can provide you with a copy of the offer to purchase, if that'll make you satisfied.
It's your evidence to provide, Mr. Moss. I'm just advising you that evidence that is post-reference with respect to.
No, and I'm advising you, I'm advising you that the possession date and the date the offer was written and accepted are two different dates. So that's, you know, I was sworn in to do that, so that's what I'm doing.
Okay, thank you.
So
Sorry,
I will go back to that 450 Talbot because it's a property that I was involved in, and the sale did occur in the reference date. And if you would require information or documentation to do that, I will provide that. So, you know, my whole job, you know, being a realtor is providing comparable sales. And when I look at this property and I look at the other property, I've justified what I thought was an accurate evaluation and comparison. But, you know, the other one that you said, 330 Poplar, and I think you have to look at the history of it. It was on the market for 3 years and didn't sell. And that has a bearing on why didn't it sell? You know, properties don't sell for 3 reasons. There's a problem with the property, there's a problem with the location, there's a problem with the price. And that's what I do for my clients. You know, I try and provide them with substantial information in regards to this. So without belaboring the issue, I took the average price of the sale of 450, which is once again in the subject area, and established a price that was lower than the assessed value. So you know, I just try and compare apples to apples. I mean, sadly, I do not have the income statements which were supposed to be provided, which were not. I think I've come to an assessment in comparison to the subject property, and as you can see, of $1,044,000. That'll conclude my part of my statement.
Thank you. Mr. Michalek, have you any questions?
Okay, so regarding the listing you have here at 450 Talbot, did you list this property and you sold it at the same time?
I did.
Okay. So it says here, just on the listing information that you provided, it says sell date 10/9/2023, and then below it says possession 12/01/2023. Would you care to just expand on that nature?
Well, sure. You know, right now, CMHC has an offering out on properties that if someone wants to finance it, they can finance it with 5% down. CMHC's application is a minimum of 4 to 6 months right now on doing that. And on this particular property, I believe, and it was done earlier in the year, and was sold, and the deal fell apart, and someone bought the contract. So you know, various things come with inspections and you know, appraisals, and when we're dealing with CMHC, the length of time is, they don't even look at your application for 3 months right now. So that's what the why I think we have to exclude that. That was April 2023, I believe, was the deadline.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, have you any questions?
So the only evidence presented on 450 Talbot is just the listing that's here. There isn't any of that other information that you had spoke about as far as the contract and delays and when CMHC approved it or anything like that.
I do not have that. I can provide that though if you want.
Okay. No, that was good. Thank you. No other questions.
Thanks.
Ms. Nesbitt, have you questions?
I have no additional questions. Thank you very much.
I just have a question, Mr. Moss, about the listing that you've shown for 510 Gray Street. You have included, and I'm looking at page 3 of your presentation. You've got a gross income of $106,530. And underneath that, you've got a net income of $86,386. When was this prepared, this listing notice?
This was prepared, well, this was the previous listing on the property, was provided in 2018 by the agent.
Oh, okay, I see. Yes,
Okay,
I see the date now.
so, pardon me?
I see the date now, yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And who calculated the cap rate of 3% on this? Was that the other agent as well?
That would be the listing agent, correct?
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything further.
Thanks.
Mr. Michalak, have you any summary?
I have no summary, thank you.
Mr. Moss, any summary?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you. Then this matter is concluded, and thank you, Mr. Moss, for your
Thank you.
presentation and your time, and Mr. Michalak, thank you as well.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Heard all the
Thank you
matters,
thank you very much.
Bye.
and having
Bye.
heard all the matters, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.